Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Hello, everybody. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas. I hope you guys got all the great, awesome movie things that you guys all wanted for Christmas. Today is going to be my third video, as you can tell. And as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be going over the entirety of my Criterion Collection. Now, this is something I like to do every now and then. When I have added a significant amount of movies to my Criterion Collection, just so there's like some sort of vlog and you guys get to hear me talk about this. If I do one now, which is the end of 2021, maybe you'll see another one at the end of 2022, if this channel's still around, which I'm hoping it will be. And it's just a cool way to just show everybody, like, here's the Criterions that I have. And let's say I don't do my entire Criterion Collection video for a while down the line. This is a good starting point for which I can provide update videos over the course of a year or several years or several months. It's also a great time for me to reminisce on the time I've spent collecting. I've been collecting for quite a few years now. And while my collection isn't mega huge or anything, this is sort of a time for me to just reminisce on when I started collecting and all that jazz, super fun stuff. So stick around for that. Thank you guys for being here, and without further ado, let's get right to it. So the way this is going to work is basically what I'm going to do is, if it's a newer release that I haven't seen or something I just bought, because obviously I did just do a video on a Criterion haul, I probably won't talk about it too much, and we'll spend a lot more time on the older releases, or the releases that I've had that I've seen already. So let's get right to it. First release is The Manchurian Candidate. Now, this is a film that I've actually seen a long time ago, and if you ask me how much I remember about it, that answer is not much at all. So I'm definitely due for a rewatch on this movie. I was actually watching some of the special features last night. There was a great special feature with Errol Morris talking about The Manchurian Candidate. I'm a big fan of his work. His most recent documentary, American Dharma, was one of my favorite films of 2019. But, this is the classic John Frankenheimer thriller of a McCarthy-era tale of soldiers coming back from the Korean War brainwashed by the communists to, enact illicit violent acts in America, right? And it's a very telling story. It's in black and white. I, again, haven't seen it in a while, so I need to catch up and rewatch the movie. But from everything I can tell, I think it's going to be a great watch when I do get around to it. Next, we have War of the Worlds from 1953. I've seen this movie, and I absolutely loved it. I went on like a little bit of a sci-fi kick over the summer. I was preparing to write a certain story that had to do with science fiction, and I wanted to get a bunch of movies about aliens and society and stuff like that, and I figured War of the Worlds was a perfect pick. I'm a big fan of Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds, and I actually hadn't seen this one before, so watching it, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed not only the cinematography, but just the story and the pacing itself. This movie actually moves pretty fast, and it is very beautiful. It's in like Technicolor, so you have these very beautiful, vibrant colors at the same time, and it's nice to see that when the aliens show up, and just to see just like what a town and what sets and everything looked like in the 1950s. That was one of the coolest things, because when you get good movies that are restored really well, I think a lot of us have a hard time, like, we can all picture what it's like back in the day, you know what I mean? Like, thinking about, like, oh, back in the day, it looked like this. but I feel like rarely is there like a work or images that are of a high enough quality that we can really like, that it sort of bridges that gap between now and then, and it really is transporting into a different world. And I think this movie, watching it now in 2021, does a very good job of transporting you back into 1953 when this movie came out. So that was really cool. I like this movie a lot. Yeah, this is one I got over the summer. Next, we have Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This movie, I actually really enjoyed. I know it's kind of divisive, apparently, I found out on, various Filmstagram outlets. But I actually rather liked it. I'm a fan of the sort of mythos, the story behind Hunter S. Thompson. I have not read any of his works, but I did see Alex Gibney's documentary Gonzo, and that's what really got me interested. That's one of the things that got me interested in Hunter S. Thompson. And, getting this movie, I'm a big fan of Johnny Depp. I like Benicio del Toro a lot. I figured checking this out might be a really good time. It looked like a good time. And I was not wrong. This movie is absolutely hilarious. It's super wild. I watched some of the things in it and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that they're like actually doing this. It's also cool to watch because like if you were paying attention to like The Weeknd and his whole After Hours type phase deal, you saw a lot of references to this story in there. So that was pretty cool. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Next, we have Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. One of my favorite movies of all time. Maybe my favorite comedy movie of all time. Honestly, this movie makes me laugh out loud every single time I watch it, and that's not a lie. This is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And I'm a huge Kubrick fan, so anybody who knows that, anybody who's a Kubrick fan, I think they're down with the level of just morbid, somewhat dry humor that he has. That's in all of his films. All of his films, through a certain lens, are very, very funny. So watching this is like one of the more overt versions of him being very comedic. Yeah, I implore you, if you haven't seen this movie, definitely to go see it. Next, we have Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, a film by Paul Schrader. This is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, honestly. Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters absolutely changed a lot of how I saw cinema, and changed even in some way how I see politics a little bit. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie when I first watched it on the Criterion channel. Actually, I think I saw it on Canopy, and it absolutely blew my mind. This heartbreaking story of this sort of defeated, emotionally stunted nationalist in Japan post-World War II. And I just love watching. Just Paul Schrader's writing is really good and very painful at times. He's known for the God's Lonely Man trope that you see so frequently in films like Taxi Driver, one of his more recent films, First Reformed. This film is no different than that. You can very clearly see that since Taxi Driver onward, he's been very interested in telling these very specific types of stories about men and ego and psychosis and all that stuff. And it's no different in this movie. And you definitely should check it out. It's got some incredible sequences. It's very good because it dramatizes his past, the past of Yukio Mishima, his last day alive, and then in between those, it has adaptations of his literary works, because he was Japan's most celebrated author, basically, at the time of his whole deal, up until his death. So yeah, Mishima, Life in 4 Chapters. Definitely check this one out. Also has, I would say, one of the coolest Criterion covers. Next we have Parasite, which has a really epic cover. This is a film I've actually only ever seen once. I really need to get around to watching it again. The one time I saw it in the movie theater. This also comes with a black and white version of the movie, so that's pretty cool. I was pretty stunned when I saw this movie, as was much of the world who saw it, which doesn't surprise me. It's very brilliant filmmaking, and Bong Joon-ho, who's a director I'm not exactly super familiar with. I think I've only seen a couple of his movies, including Parasite. So he's a director I'm definitely going to keep an eye out on. But there's tons of special features on this, which I think is one of the coolest parts about it. You know, there's conversations between Bong and Darcy Paquette, tons of interviews, programs, Cannes Film Festival press conference, a masterclass featuring Bong Joon-ho at the Lumiere Festival in Lyon, France, storyboard comparisons. So this is definitely just a good Criterion in general. But yeah, if you're a fan of Parasite, you definitely should have this. This is like the definitive way to have Parasite. Next, we have Roma. This is a great film. I'm a huge fan of Alfonso Cuarón. I really love his movies. Gravity, Tu Mamá También. Children of Men, I think, is my favorite, probably. But this movie is great. I remember watching it when it came out on Netflix. I've seen it at least 2 or 3 times, I think, now. But this is a great, very thick Criterion. It's got a very thick booklet, which I think is very, very good for people who like to read those. I prefer the very thick booklets. It actually encourages me to want to read them and read the essays inside of them. It's got a lot of great special features, beautiful black and white film. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely should. It's about an indigenous Mexican housemaid in a sort of white Mexican family, a lighter skinned Mexican family, basically. And it's at a time of great political upheaval in Mexico. So you get to see like all of that sort of coincide. A lot of talk about class and all that stuff, but a great film in my opinion, and a very, very interesting study on racism to an extent and classism and how those two sometimes coincide. Great film. Next, we have Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life. I love this movie. I adore this movie so much. This is probably my favorite or second favorite Terrence Malick movie, if I'm being honest. Every time I watch this movie, I'm just entranced. Some of the most iconic sequences, like the whole birth of the universe and the journey through time and stuff like that, really make this just a must get on Criterion Blu-ray, you know what I mean? This actually had a new 4K restoration too. So maybe this movie will probably, I want to say, maybe get remastered for 4K on Criterion, which would be really, really cool. I mean, not remastered on 4K, will be upgraded to the 4K version for the Criterion archive, so that would be pretty sick. It's got, documentaries about the making of the movie. It also has a director's cut of the movie, which is like 3 hours long, if you're into that. But yeah, I love this movie so much. Next, we have one of quite a few Wes Anderson movies that are in my collection, and this one is Moonrise Kingdom. This, I think, is maybe the second or it's like very early in my exposure to Wes Anderson, if I'm being very honest. I saw Moonrise Kingdom pretty quickly once I started watching movies, and I think it was definitely one of the earliest Wes Anderson movies that I saw. This movie's adorable. If you're into the Wes Anderson aesthetic, you should watch this movie. That's virtually all I have to say about it. It's got great special features though. It's got a great story, great cast as always. It's got like Bruce Willis and Frances McDormand and these 2 young kids who, one of them the girl in the movie, I've seen her in quite a few things like Manchester by the Sea and some other stuff, but yeah. Moonrise Kingdom. Next, we have My Own Private Idaho. I think this is only the second Gus Van Sant movie that I've actually ever seen. And I actually really like it. I was kind of weird the first time I saw it. I really wasn't like, I didn't like understand like its wavelength. But then as the movie went on, I sort of was like, okay, I'm with it, because it's like an adaptation of Shakespeare. They use Shakespeare dialogue. Sometimes they use normal people dialogue. So it's kind of interesting to see this. And Joaquin Phoenix, I can't believe I just said that. River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves are just so amazing in this movie. I thoroughly enjoy them in this film. And it's a very beautiful film, too, weirdly enough. It's got kind of a gritty, grimy aesthetic, but if you can find a beauty in those environments, I think this is a very beautiful film. Next, we have one of my favorite movies of the last 10 or so years, maybe ever, and that is The Irishman. I think possibly my favorite Martin Scorsese movie. Dude, I mean, what else can you say besides it's got De Niro, Pacino, Pesci. It's Scorsese leaning into the darkness of those mob stories rather than the fun lightness that he's known for previously. You know, the big bombastic camera moves, music, laughing, all that stuff. This movie is almost devoid of all of those things, and I think makes for one of his greatest achievements in his career, maybe the single greatest achievement in his entire career. Yeah, The Irishman. Great. Definitely check it out. Next, we have another Wes Anderson movie, and that is The Fantastic Mr. Fox. I really like this movie. It's one of my favorite animated movies. I think I like Isle of Dogs possibly a little bit better in terms of the Wes Anderson, the two animated Wes Anderson titles. But this is really a fun story. Again, great cast, super fun Wes Anderson movie. If you know what he's about, you know what to expect out of a movie like this. Next, we have the 4K of Citizen Kane. I've never seen Citizen Kane, but I've seen Mank. So I'm very interested. I'm sorry, my dog is like walking in and out the door. I'm very interested in checking this movie out and double featuring it with Mank, because you know, when I saw Mank, it took me a couple watches for me to like really sort of get with the movie, and the more I've thought about it, the more I've learned about Citizen Kane or just thought about the movie in general, I've become far more interested in it. So I really want to watch this. I haven't seen it yet, unfortunately, but soon, and maybe I'll do a review of this Criterion very soon as well. I do have to destroy the Blu-ray disc because apparently all the Blu-ray number 1 discs on this release are very messed up, so I have to get a disc replacement for it. But yeah. Next, we have Failsafe, filmed by Sidney Lumet. I have not seen this movie, but Sidney Lumet is a director that I very much enjoy their work. Network is one of my favorite movies. I love Dog Day Afternoon. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Stuff like that. So getting a Sidney Lumet movie and adding it to my collection really seemed like a no-brainer, especially a movie as popular as Failsafe, and is also thematically related to Doctor Strangelove. They even mentioned this movie in the special features for Doctor Strangelove, so, you know. Sidney Lumet movie, I will watch it. I will report to you on the quality of it, but yeah. Failsafe. Next, we have 1984, a movie I haven't seen, but a movie I definitely do want to watch. It was shot by Roger Deakins, which is very, very interesting. It was also released in 1984, so that's pretty good. We're all sort of familiar with the 1984 story, and living in like a post-Patriot Act America, I think this story sort of screams a little bit more relevant than probably many would like to hope that it would. But I'm very interested in checking this out and seeing what the movie is like. And eventually reading the book. I do want to read the book as well. But yeah, 1984. Next, we have The Great Escape. This movie was a childhood favorite of mine. I loved The Great Escape when I was a kid. I couldn't get enough of that movie. So seeing that the Criterion Collection was releasing The Great Escape in a new, awesome way with a new digital transfer that I could see the movie a way I've never seen it before. That was kind of a no-brainer for me to pick up. Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, World War II movie. I love World War II stuff, and I was a big nerd about it when I was a kid. So getting this movie was kind of a no-brainer. Next, we have State of Siege, a movie I really, really enjoyed the first time I watched it. It's by Costa Gavras, who I think is an amazing filmmaker, at least by this and Z. I've seen another one of his movies, but I can't really remember anything about it, so I kind of am chalking it up to just I haven't seen it. But yeah, you know, I love stories about political upheaval, coups in Latin America, CIA stuff. This is kind of all of that. So if you're into that stuff, definitely check it out. It's from 1972. It looks beautiful. I actually peeped the transfer a little bit, and it's really, really good. It's really, really good. And I highly recommend it, just personally, because I'm just a big fan of Costa Gavras. Works this and Z, and I hope Z will eventually come to the Criterion Collection either on Blu-ray or on 4K in the future. Next, we have Pedro Almodovar's All About My Mother. I've never seen a Pedro Almodovar work, so I got this because I wanted to check it out. I've only seen a little bit of Pain and Glory, but I really don't. I didn't really get through enough of it, and I don't remember enough of it. It was too long ago. So I'll have to get Pain and Glory and finish that. I'm excited for his new movie, Parallel Mothers. After looking at the transfer on this, I can see that there's sort of a colorful aesthetic he likes to go for. So yeah, All About My Mother. I can't wait to see this one. Next, we have Beasts of No Nation, which is about a story about child soldiers in Africa, and one particular child soldier. It came out in 2015. It was directed by Kariyoji Fukunaga. When this movie came out on Netflix, it really blew my mind. So when they announced that it was coming to Criterion in August of this year, I was super excited to get it, and I'm so glad that it's finally out and that I have it. I really can't wait to revisit this movie and watch it again, because I remember just being so blown away by some of the visual flares of what Carrie was doing, but also just this very deeply emotional story and painful and horrific story at times that was being told. I had read Ishmael Bea's autobiography, A Long Way Home or A Long Way Gone. It's something like that. I had read it for summer reading, and I was very captivated by that story of his time as a child soldier in Africa. So this movie, when it came out, weirdly enough, came out at a very similar time that I had read the book. So it was kind of a no-brainer, really, to pick this up after I loved it, read a book based on someone who had very similar experiences to that shown in the film. So next, we have The Sweet Smell of Success, a movie that I watched most of it and then fell asleep while I was watching it, and then have yet to come back to. But from what I saw, I really, really loved it. So I really need to get back to this movie, honestly. It's directed by Alexander McKendrick, Burt Lancaster, Tony Curtis. Cool, hip, fast 1950s dialogue. Very funny movie, too. And also very scathing critique on sort of media and tabloids. It's also a 50s movie. It's beautiful black and white, too. Like, some of the shots in there, I remember just being like, I can't believe they were doing that in the 50s. So yeah, and it's also got just an amazing cover. I love this cover a lot, actually. So, but yeah, Sweet Smell of Success. Next, we have David Cronenberg's Scanners. This is a film I've seen once, a long time ago. I think either when I was in high school or very, very early college, I had seen this movie. I got this when I was kind of on my sci-fi binge. I need to get to it and watch it. If not for anything, just to see the head exploding scene. But I am very interested in this movie and seeing if there's anything new I can sort of pick up from it now, right? And I really do want to get into Cronenberg in general. I've not really seen many of his films. I think I've seen this, history of violence and Eastern promises, so I have a lot of catching up to do when it comes to the Cronenberg filmography, if you will. And next, we have Christ Stopped at Eboli. This is a film that I got purely based on the description. An elegy of exile and epic immersion of the world of rural Italy during the regime of Benito Mussolini. Francesco Rossi's sublime adaptation of the memoirs of the painter, physician, and political activist Carlo Levi brings a monument of 20th century autobiography to the screen with quiet grace and solemn beauty. That's enough for me. And it's very, very long. It's almost 4 hours long, so, you know. This is a movie that I looked at the transfer a little bit. It looks very interesting. I'm into the history and stuff like that, so a movie about fascist Italy and a political activist is something that I actually found myself very interested in, so there we go. All right, next we have Marriage Story. If you haven't heard by now, this is a great movie by Noah Baumbach. It's on Netflix. Scarlett Johansson, Adam Driver giving some of the best performances they've ever given in any movie. And yeah, I don't know. I just had to have it when I got it. I really like it. It's a great, painful, and also very detailed story of love through divorce. Weirdly enough. So yeah, Marriage Story. Next, we have Edward Yang's A Brighter Summer Day. I've actually seen this movie. It's 4 minutes shy, 4 hours long. I watched it with a friend of mine, and we were both super shocked by the ending. It's crazy because this movie goes on so long, and you're like getting it, and then you're kind of like wondering where it's eventually going to go or end up. And the finale that it concludes on is shocking. Shocking. So, but it's really sick. It's a really sick movie. If you're willing to make it through the 4 hours, I think there's a lot of stuff in here that people might be willing to find and appreciate. Next, we have Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs, a movie that I love. Loved this movie when I watched it. It started out pretty slow, and I was like, I don't really know where this is going. But once it got to its sort of crazy finale at this home invasion situation that is like basically the last central point of the film, I really just, I fell in love with it. And Dustin Hoffman is so bad. His character is just so bad, but so it's just so good. It's just so good when you watch the performances, when you see the movie. Super controversial. It's very gritty. I can understand why it gets people mad. There was one point at the end of the movie in particular where I really was like, people are jumping up and down and setting the seats of the movie theater on fire if this is shown in a movie today. Just saying. Great film, though. Great film. Next, we have Steven Soderbergh's Traffic. This was a gift that was given to me for my birthday. I'm a fan of some Soderbergh works, and this is one of them for sure. I love this movie a lot. I love the interweaving stories. I love its commentary on the war on drugs. I love the performances. I love Soderbergh's style. This movie is just. This is a movie that was definitely made for me, especially as somebody who has spent a lot of time doing research and trying to understand sort of the politics behind something like this, the war on drugs and opioid epidemics and stuff like that. So, yeah. Definitely should watch it. Great film, in my opinion. Next, we have another one of my favorite films. This is The Last Temptation of Christ, written by Paul Schrader, directed by Martin Scorsese. What can I say? I'm a sucker for Paul Schrader scripts, and I'm a sucker for a non-traditional telling of the story of Christ, which we don't really get a lot. And this film, I think, has a very unique take on that story that will appeal not just to, it is obviously very controversial for Christian audiences when it came out, but I think it has a very, very interesting point of view that I think that a lot can be learned from, if you will, in specifically the communities it was controversial in. Next, we have one of the earliest, I think maybe the first Criterion I ever purchased, and that is Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line. I figured if I was going to get a movie from the Criterion Collection, I was going to blind buy something that I at least could get on with. And I like war movies. So Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life seemed like a perfect pick. I mean, The Tree of Life, The Thin Red Line seemed like a perfect pick. And what can I say? The cinematography by John Tall is, cinematography by John Tall is beautiful. Terrence Malick is obviously known for making very beautiful movies, but it's just so cool that I've never seen a war movie done like this. And what's crazy is this came out the same year as Saving Private Ryan and was nominated for Best Picture as well that very same year. And everybody has copied Saving Private Ryan in their war movie, but nobody's copied The Thin Red Line. And it's interesting that that's the case. It's not exactly surprising, but this is a very unique war movie. And if you're a war movie fan, if you're a fan of Terrence Malick, it's a must-own. We have another Terrence Malick movie, Badlands. I've seen this movie once. I actually really enjoyed it. I remember really enjoying it the first time I watched it, but I'm definitely due for a rewatch. But it's sort of like I'll read you the back, because I think the back sums it up better than I will. His impressionist take on the notorious Charles Starkweather killing spree of the late 1950s. So, it's pretty cool. Next, we have one of my favorite documentaries of all time. We have Bowling for Columbine. Michael Moore, a documentarian that I have mixed opinions about, but this is, I think, a great work by him. Some stunning, controversial, very, very graphic sequences in this film, but a film that I think has asked a lot of questions that, need answers. And I'm willing, even if I disagree somewhat with his premise a couple times, I'm willing to go along for the ride. Next, we have Punch Drunk Love, a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I've actually seen this movie a couple times, but I haven't seen it in the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 2 years. I don't think I've seen it in the last 2 years. So it's something I definitely want to revisit. But Paul Thomas Anderson and Adam Sandler here really create, I think, a very, very special romance comedy movie that's kind of very off-kilter, very quirky in all the ways that Paul Thomas Anderson movies usually are. So if you're really into him, I think this is definitely a worth watch. I think this is actually a very good movie. Next, we have another Terrence Malick movie, Days of Heaven. I'm going to be honest, I've seen this movie. I don't remember a single thing about it. It's been so long since I've seen it. And this is from the very early days of my collection. The very early days of my collection, I was collecting Wes Anderson and Terrence Malick, and I've sort of given up on both of those things. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have to check this out again and report back on how exactly I feel about this movie. Next, we have Barry Lyndon, another Kubrick film. An amazing movie, like all of his late stage films. I would say anything after Doctor Strange, after The Killing, brilliant. And Barry Lyndon is no exception to that. A very long but epic tale of a sort of wayward deserter guy who's kind of just... He's a jerk. He's just a jerk. And he makes his way up in high society, and he kind of just ends up dearly paying for all the pain and harm that he's caused. I remember when this came out, I immediately had to have it when they announced it, and I've not been disappointed. And it just looks beautiful. This is known as like one of the best looking films like ever, and I think it is. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't necessarily pair it to the extent that a lot of people do. There are some very, very beautiful shots in this movie, that's for sure, that look like paintings from the era. But I think there are definitely some Kubrick movies that are more exquisitely shot than this one. However, this is a phenomenal film. Next, we have David Fincher's The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, a movie that I need to watch again. I really don't remember as much as I probably should about this movie, but I think I've only seen it like twice, and both times I saw it were many, many years ago. This also, one of my very earliest pickups. I think I got this at an FYE. It's also just kind of disappointing that it comes in this normal Blu-ray packaging. I don't know. They could have done better on that. They could have, spiced it up a little bit, but is what it is. Next, we have Paths of Glory, another Kubrick film. World War I movie, phenomenal. Kirk Douglas, very tragic film, but a very, very telling film about war. And when we get to this next one, you can see that there is kind of a theme in sort of pickups I like to get whenever they do something, and that is war movies again. Now, we have maybe the most brutally honest, graphic, soul-destroying war film of all time, Come and See, by Elim Klimov. Honestly, when you get to the end of this film, you just kind of feel destroyed on the inside a little bit. Just the sheer barbaric nature of war, I think, is on display here. And maybe one of the few war films that maybe doesn't fall into the trope idea that every war film, by showing war, is by then extent a pro-war film. I think this movie is just kind of relentlessly unfun in any aspect, and lacks sort of the quality of movies that try and, when they do a war scene, the spectacle of war isn't really here. It's not filmed. It's not shot in that way. It's not presented in any way like that. It really feels just somber the entire way through. And it's probably one of the greatest movies of all time. Definitely one of the greatest war movies of all time. That's for sure. We have yet another Kubrick movie, The Killing. It's a heist movie by Kubrick. That's all you need to know. Beautiful black and white cinematography. One of the craziest endings of any movie ever. 1956. It's a very quick watch. It's not even 90 minutes long. It's like 84 minutes. Go check this one out, for sure. Next, we have Wildlife, a movie that I have only seen once, and I don't remember very little, and I remember very little about it. But it's got not Zoe Kazan. It's got Carey Mulligan and Jake Gyllenhaal, and it's directed by Paul Dano, and it's written by Paul Dano and Zoe Kazan. So that should be something. And then next we have Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This was one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. I really want to watch it again. Actually, I need to get down to watching this movie again, because it blew me away the first time I watched it. I kind of didn't know. I'm not a fan of dress period pieces, but watching this film really took. I forgot about it instantaneously, and I was just completely encapsulated by the story of these two women, and it's quite beautifully shot, and one of the just arguably most painful experiences when it comes to just seeing that relationship. I know a lot of people get a lot of feels about the ending shot in particular. Very, 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 very tragic to an extent. But yeah, great movie. Next we have Che. I am a big fan of... You know what? When I first saw this, I wasn't the biggest fan of Che. And then time went on, and I've seen it like at least 2 or 3 times, I think, which is crazy because it's like 4 hours long. And I really dig it. It's maybe not one of my favorite Soderbergh pieces, maybe not one of my favorite pieces about historical figures like this, but an important one nonetheless, and I think a very interesting one to study and look at. There's definitely a lot to love about this, for sure. And I'm very glad I have it in my collection. And it's presented immaculately, if I do say so myself. Next, we have the first Criterion I was ever gifted, and that is this DVD copy of the Royal Tenenbaums. I do need to upgrade to Blu-ray, but this was given to me by a friend. It has a very special place in my heart. I really love the Royal Tenenbaums. It's a movie I have great admiration for. I think it's one of the best Wes Anderson films. And yeah, it's just nice to sort of have this kind of hip DVD edition. I really, really enjoy it. Yeah. Next, finally, we're down to my box sets. For starters, we have, I'm going to get through this one quick because it was in that video. We have the Godzilla box set, the Showa era, which lasted from 1954 to 1975. So this goes from Godzilla 1954, right, the very first Godzilla movie by Ishiro Honda, to Terror of Mechagodzilla, which ended the Showa era in 1975 and was also directed by Ishiro Honda. What can I say? It's got beautiful artwork. It's Godzilla. I'm a big Godzilla fan. Ergo, I had to have it. So yeah, that's the Godzilla box set. And then last but not least, we have the Ingmar Bergmans Cinema box set. I'm a fan of Ingmar Bergman. I very much enjoy his works. Winterlight probably being my favorite, but I also love Autumn Sonata, which I actually rewatched very recently, and loved that movie. Seen Cries and Whispers, seen The Seventh Seal, as has everyone. Persona. But I got this because there's a lot of Bergman movies I still haven't seen that I really do want to watch. So yeah, this is just really amazing. It's a big set. It's got 35 movies in it, I believe. It's got this thick 248-page book as well. Definitely the creme de la creme, along with the Godzilla box set of my entire Criterion collection. I absolutely love this so much. Yeah, thank you very much for sticking around and watching me, show off my entire Criterion collection. It's really what this video is. It's not very supposed to be a substantive video, just sort of video showing off all my pickups, what I have, why I chose them. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be coming very soon. Bye.